أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Reflections on the Risale-i Nur by Bediuzzaman Said Nursi podcast series. This is Mustafa Tuna. You can listen to the episodes of this series wherever you listen to your podcasts or at the website www.reflections-rn.org. A rough translation of the text we will be reflecting upon in this episode, inshallah, will be posted at this website too. And that text is the 14th Word by Bediuzzaman Said Nursi, the 14th treatise in the book, The Words. We already read some of this treatise. It is composed of two sections. The first section is Ustad Nursi's interpretation, commentary on some verses, especially verses that have been subject to controversies, that have been challenged or misunderstood. And he shows us that contrary to what their challenges, what the challenges of those verses or what the people who have failed to understand those verses have thought or said, these verses are pointing to tremendous realities, and in fact they are miraculous. So Ustad Nursi begins this treatise with the following paragraph. We already read that in the earlier episodes, but it's an introduction, so I'll read it again here. As steps to help the hearts that are deficient in the submission and acquiescence needed to climb to the high and lofty truths of the Wisdomful Qur'an. So the point here is, in order to climb to those high and lofty truths, we first need to submit. We need to say, Amanna wa saddaqna. We need to say, we believe and we are heeding the advice, the teaching, the command, whatever it is in these verses. And then when we look with that submission and acquiescence, the meanings of those verses start to open up and we can perhaps climb to their high and lofty stations. So, to the high and lofty truths of the Wisdomful Qur'an and the prophetic traditions, which are its true interpreters. The prophetic traditions are the true interpreters of the Qur'an. We will point to some examples of those truths. Now, we said this treatise is of two sections. In the second section is a number of subjects, and Ustad Nursi explains it as, then a lesson with a moral and a secret of solicitude will be expressed in the concluding remarks. Because the ones among those examples that pertain to resurrection and the hour of destruction are mentioned in the 10th word, and especially in its 9th truth, there is no need for repetition here. However, we will mention 5 matters among other truths as samples. So we have been reading those samples of verses, and inshallah we will read the 5th matter today and conclude this section so that we can move on to the second section of the treatise in the following episode. So, Bismillah. 5th matter. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وما قدر الله حق قدره والأرض جميعا قبضته يوم القيامة والسماوات مطويات بيمينه Then tut تا واعلموا أن الله يحول بين المرء وقلبه يقدر هم الله خالق كل شيء وهو على كل شيء وكيل. Then tut ta يَعْلَمُ مَا يُسِرُّونَ وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ na kadar hem خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ dan tut ta خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ na kadar hem مَا شَاءَ اللّٰهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللّٰهِ dan tut ta وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللّٰهُ ya kadar hududu azameti rububiyeti ve kibriyay uluhiyeti tutmuş olan ezel ebed sultanı, şu aciz ve nihayetsiz zayıf ve nihayetsiz fakir ve nihayetsiz muhtaç ve yalnız cüz'i bir ihtiyarla icada kabiliyeti olmayan zayıf bir kisple mücehhez Beni Adem'e karşı şedid şikayat-ı Kur'aniyesi ve azim tehdidatı ve müthiş vaidleri ne hikmete binaendir ve ne vecih ile tevfik edilir, ne suretle münasip düşer demek olan derin ve yüksek hakikate kanaat getirmek için şu gelecek iki temsile bak. So again, this is beginning with a list of verses. We will read them inshallah as due. To attain conviction in the high and profound reality of the wisdom that undergird the severe Quranic complaints, tremendous threats, and dreadful promises of punishment of the Sultan of pre-eternity and post-eternity, the boundaries of the tremendousness of whose lordship and the grandeur of whose divinity has ceased from وَمَا قَدَرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبْضَتُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ مَطْوِيَّاتٌ بِيَمِينِهِ. These people have no grasp of God's true measure. On the day of resurrection, the whole earth will be in his grip. The heavens will be rolled up in his right hand. This is from the Quran, obviously, chapter 39, verse 67. From that, all the way to وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِهِ. Know that God comes between a man and his heart. The chapter 8, verse 24. This is a section of the verse, right? Then, from Allahu khaliqu kulli shay'in wa huwa ala kulli shay'in wakil. God is the creator of all things. He has charge of everything. Chapter 39, verse 62, all the way to يَعْلَمُ مَا يُسِرُّونَ وَمَا يُعْلِنُونَ. God is well aware of what they conceal and what they reveal. Chapter 2, verse 77. Then from خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ. It is He who created the heavens and the earth. Chapter 6, verse 73. All the way to خَلَقَكُمْ وَمَا تَعْمَلُونَ. It is God who has created you and what you make. Chapter 37, verse 96. And from مَا شَاءَ اللَّهُ لَا قُوَّةَ إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. This is God's will. There is no power not given by God. This is chapter 18, verse 39, all the way to وَمَا تَشَاءُونَ إِلَّا أَنْ يَشَاءَ اللَّهُ. But you will only wish to do so if God wills. So these are the verses. I'm going to read from the beginning, but reading only the English interpretations of renderings of the verses, inshallah. To attain conviction in the high and profound reality of the wisdom that underline the severe Quranic complaints, tremendous threats, and dreadful promises of punishment of the Sultan of pre-eternity and post-eternity, the boundaries of the tremendousness of whose lordship and the grandeur of whose divinity has ceased from. And at this point we start reading the verses, and these verses describe, right, the tremendousness of God's lordship and the grandeur of his divinity. What are those verses? Or what are the English renderings of those verses? These people have no grasp of God's true measure. On the day of resurrection, the whole earth will be in his grip. The heavens will be rolled up in his right hand. Now try to imagine. Try to imagine how the heavens might be rolled up. Those tremendous heavenly bodies that look like giants, massive giants to us, will become like little pieces or specks of dust rolled up in his hand. Is that giving you a measure, some level of measure, right? What you need to conclude that with though is that he is greater than that. Whatever measure that has emerged in your mind, you need to conclude it by saying Allahu Akbar. He is even greater than that, much greater than that, unlimitedly greater than that. All the way to know that God comes between a man and his heart. He's so big, great. He is so majestic. He is so powerful to the extent that the heavens and the earth become like specks of dust in his grip. But at the same time, he is so close to the man, the human being, that he comes between the person and his heart. He is closer to you, he is closer to me than I am to my heart. We need to try to understand, right? If something is unlimitedly great, right, that greatness does not mean he is unlimitedly far and distant and has nothing to do with this, because, well, he has the capacity, ability to reach to those that are unlimitedly small too. Being able to reach, dispose of, control things that are unlimitedly small is an aspect of being great. And then, right, from God is the creator of all things, he has charge of everything, all the way to God is well aware of what they conceal and what they reveal. So he is the creator of everything. He has control over everything. He has the charge of everything. And he knows everything. He knows the most hidden thoughts, most hidden secrets in our hearts, sometimes secrets that even we do not know. We are not aware. We sometimes, host these feelings, thoughts, enmities, loves, likes, dislikes in our hearts, in our spirit, somewhere in our memory for decades, and then something happens and all of a sudden we recognize that, wow, I had this. I have nurtured this thought in my heart for so many years and I wasn't aware of it. God knows it. God knows it. Then from it is he who created the heavens and the earth, all the way to it is God who has created you and what you make. So think universally, he created the heavens and the earth and everything in between. Everything, the entire cosmos and whatever is beyond the visible, observable universe that we know, the paradise, hell, the planes, everything, right? But don't think that he's busy with these great affairs and you are forlorn. He is going to forsake you. No, it is God who has created you. And importantly, and what you make. Don't think that what you make what you make. You make the inclination, you make the choice, and he is the one who makes it. He is the one who creates it. And from this is God's will. There is no power not given by God. You think that you have the power to lift your hand? No, you don't. You don't. It is His power, right? He is enabling you to do that as a trust, right? It is not in your essence. It is being attached to you, and He is the one who is attaching that capacity to you, to your essence, all the way to, but you will only wish to do so if God wills. You will not even be able to wish something, choose something, unless God wills. Unless God wills, meaning He is the one who puts that choice in front of you. He is the one who gives the ability to choose to you. You choose, therefore you have the responsibility for it. And inshallah, this is a subtle matter. We will explain it, try to understand it in much further detail when we reach, inshallah, the 26th word, right? But what we need to agree on between our heart, between our intellect and our lower souls at this point is that all power belongs to Him. He is the one who creates everything, but we have the choice to pick one or the other, and therefore we have the responsibility. Okay, so all the way to, but you will only wish to do so if God wills, against these impotent, endlessly weak, endlessly poor, but we should remember what was at the beginning before we continue, right? To attain conviction in the high and profound reality of the wisdom that undergird the severe Quranic complaints, tremendous threats, and dreadful promises of punishment. In the Quran, you will find this. Verses that complain about the disbelievers, about the munafiqun, about the mushrikun, the ascribers, the idolaters, the polytheists, right? Against the sinners. There will be severe complaints about them, and there will be tremendous threats against them, right? Hell is waiting for you. You will burn in fire. You will stay there forever. You are going to drink the scorching drink there. You are going to this and that. You will be tormented again and again. And there are dreadful promises of punishment. Play around this world for a while. The end is written for you. The end will be painful. The end will be regretful, right? There are all these threats and promises of punishment and complaints from the Sultan of pre-eternity and post-eternity, the God that we just tried to understand based on these verses. He's so tremendous, right? And then, people ask, so why is it? Why is there all this complaint and threat, so much emphasis on it against these impotent, endlessly weak, endlessly poor, endlessly needy children of Adam? They are so small on the scale of things. Why do they deserve such significant emphasis? So much complaint and threat and promise of punishment from God, who is the creator of heavens and the earth. These children of Adam who are equipped with only partial volition and a weak ability to choose, without any capacity to bring anything into existence. So if you want to attain, right? If you want to attain conviction in the high and profound reality of the wisdom, right, that undergirds these severe Quranic complaints, if you want to understand how we can see their suitability, how are these threats and promises of punishment suitable for this impotent, weak, etc. human being, in what way they are appropriate, right? How are they appropriate, and in what way are they appropriate? Take a look at these two representations to come. Before we continue, we also need to perhaps say a few words about this description of the human being. Those who have been following this podcast probably heard about this many times, especially in the first word. We did this in somewhat in detail, but anyways, a little bit of repetition should not hurt, right? The description of the human being here is interesting and important. Against these impotent, endlessly weak, endlessly poor, endlessly needy children of Adam, who are equipped with only partial volition and a weak ability to choose without any capacity to bring anything into existence. So when you look at this, you see it's such a destitute, desperate, poor creature is the human being, right? It has endless needs. Now, the butterfly that comes out of its chrysalis in the spring or summer also has needs. It is also needy, but the needs of the butterfly do not compare to the needs of the human being, nor do the needs of the mountain or the wind or the tree or the fish or the cow or the chimpanzee. None of that compares to the needs of the human being, because all of those things need things to survive in this material world. The butterfly needs perhaps some nectar, the air to fly, maybe other butterflies, etc., etc. The tree needs water, earth, soil, nutrients, the sunlight, air, etc., etc. And the human being needs all of those too. The human being needs everything that the inanimate beings need, because its body is composed of inanimate parts. It needs everything that the plants and animals need, because it is a living organism, right? But it has two things that it has at a level and with a nature that nothing else in the creation, the visible creation of the visible realm have, and those are imagination and intellect. Through his imagination and intellect, the human being can turn anything that it can conceive of, think of, or imagine into a need. I think of the moon and I want to go to the moon. And if I, think too seriously about this, for some people, going to the moon may become a need. Going to the moon never becomes a need for a cow. A better, some more grass or better grass, yeah, maybe. Some more water, a warmer air, yeah, maybe. But the cow never imagines a land beyond the ocean and feels this urge to travel there, right? The human being can have endless needs, because anything that he can imagine or think of can turn into a need. The corollary to this, though, is that he has no power. He cannot bring anything into existence, and therefore none of the things that he needs, right, are within his capacity to materialize, to bring into existence, to procure. Therefore it is endlessly impotent, and therefore it is weak. The human being is weak, it's needy, poor. All the human being has is partial volition, i.e., when it is presented with two or more options, he is given this secret, subtle capacity that enables him to make a choice between those options. So weak. So how can a human being who has no power whatsoever beyond this choice deserve such threat, deserve such promise of punishment, deserve such complaint, right? I mean, you think of a 1-year-old child. The 1-year-old child give something in the child's hand. Let's say give a crystal cup in the child's hand, and the child has just started to walk, and he is walking with this crystal cup in his hand, but the motor nervous system, his motor skills are not developed enough for him to be able to control the cup, and he drops it. He is not even aware that this is a bad thing, right? You don't get angry with this child. You don't punish this child because he dropped the crystal cup. You think, okay, this child does not have the capacity to control the cup or know that dropping the cup is a bad thing, etc., etc. If somebody got really angry with the child and attempted to punish the child, you would even think that this is not fair. You should not do it. You cannot do it. Is this the case? Is this the case when we look at the human being? Now, some people do feel that there is something that is out of balance in these threats and promises of punishment and complaints and etc., etc. But let's see if that is the case. Because again, the important part here, or one of the important parts here, is that although he is weak, impotent, poor, needy, has only a weak ability to choose, only partial volition, well, he does have partial volition and a weak ability to choose. He has an ability to choose. And he also has intellect to tell truth from falsehood. He also has conscience, like a compass that always shows in the direction of the true, good, beautiful, rightful, just things. So he is equipped. He is equipped with the equipment to know what is good, and he is given a choice. So he is not like that baby. He is weak, impotent, etc., etc., but he does have a capacity, and that capacity has important consequences. That is what Üstad Nursi is going to explain to us here. Birinci temsil. Mesela, şahane bir bağ var ki nihayetsiz meyvedar ve çiçektar masnular içinde bulunuyorlar. Ona nezaret etmek için pek çok hademeler tayin edilmiş. Bir hizmetkarın vazifesi dahi yalnız o bağa yayılacak ve içilecek suyun mecrasındaki deliğin kapağını açmaktır. Ve şu hizmetkar ise tembellik etti, deliğin kapağını açmadı. O bağın tekemmülüne halal geldi veyahut kurudu. O vakit Halık'ın sanat-ı Rabbaniyesinden ve sultanın nezareti şahanesinden ve ziya ve hava ve toprağın hizmeti bendeganesinden başka bütün hademelerin o sersemden şekvaya hakları vardır. Zira hizmetlerini akîm bıraktı veya zarar verdi. So Ustad Nursi said, we will explain this matter with two representations, two allegories, right? The first representation. Say there is a royal orchard with numerous fruit-bearing and flowering artifacts in it. Artifacts because, we want to emphasize that they are made by an artful maker, right? Trees, plants, they're all artifacts. Everything that we see around us in the creation, they're artifacts. Say there is a royal orchard with numerous fruit-bearing and flowering artifacts in it. Many servants have been appointed to supervise it. The duty of one of the servants is to open the lid on the waterway through which water comes to that orchard for distribution and drinking. Yet this servant was lazy and did not open the lid. So what do you expect to happen? Everybody are doing their jobs. The one who is in charge of air, making sure that there is enough air and ventilation, etc. The one who is in charge of perhaps weeding, this person is doing his job. He is weeding. The one who is in charge of, let's say, fertilizing the plants, doing the job. The one who is in charge of pruning the plants, doing the job. Everybody are doing their job except for one person. Who is it? The one whose job was to open the lid on the waterway through which water comes. He is not making water. He is not creating water, nor is he procuring water. nor has he opened those channels, nor is he maintaining those channels. All he has to do is to open the lid so that water flows into the waterway and comes to the orchard and is distributed or used for drinking by those people who are working in the orchard. Right? Open, close, that's it. One act. Yet the servant was lazy and did not open the lid. The orchard's growth into perfection, right? This is a beautiful orchard. Everything is prepared perfectly. It is going to grow into perfection. Those trees will grow and blossom and fruit, and those flower plants are going to, come out and show their beautiful colors and smells, and the bees will be attracted. Beautiful bugs will be attracted. It's going to become such a beautiful place when it grows into perfection. But the orchard's growth into perfection was stunted because the water did not come, or it completely dried out. Then, in addition to the lordly art of the Creator, the royal supervision of the Sultan, and the subservient service of light, air, and soil, all servants have a right to complain about that idle brain. All of these things, right? The Creator has a lordly art, and that lordly art deserves appreciation, but it is now left devoid of the appreciation that it deserves. The royal supervision of the Sultan royally is supervising what's going on in this garden, but the outcome is prevented from materializing, right? And the subservient service of light, air, and soil, all these elements that are working in the materialization of the outcome of that garden, and all those servants who are, doing the nitty-gritty of what needs to be done in this garden. They all have the right to complain about that idle brain. They all worked hard. They all put their utmost into it. And what is the outcome? Nothing. Yes, they do have a right to complain, because he, that idle brain, the one who did not open the lid, he caused their services to become fruitless or harmed them. Perhaps, he thought of opening it later and opened, and there was a little bit water that came in, and therefore the plants are still alive, but they are not blooming and blossoming. They're all wilted. It looks like this desperate place. They do have a right to complain. İkinci temsil. Mesela cesim bir sefine-i sultaniyede adi bir adam cüz'i vazifesini terk etmesiyle bütün gemideki vazifedarların netaici hidematına halal getirdiğinden ve bazı da mahvettiğinden bütün o vazifedarlar namına gemi sahibi ondan şiddet şikayet eder. Kusur sahibi ise diyemez ki ben bir adi adamım, ehemmiyetsiz ihmalimden şu şiddete müstahak değilim. Çünkü tek bir adem hadsiz ademleri intac eder. Fakat vücut kendine göre semere verir. Çünkü bir şeyin vücudu bütün şerait ve esbabın vücuduna mütevakkıf olduğu halde o şeyin ademi ve intifası tek bir şartı intifasıyla ve tek bir cüz'ün ademiyle netice itibarıyla münadim olur. Bundandır ki tahrip tamirden pek çok defa eshel olduğu bir düsturu mütearife hükmüne geçmiştir. Second representation. Say on a massive sultanic ship. There's a ship that belongs to the sultan. The owner of the ship severely complains about a lowly man on behalf of all employees for having brought harm to the outcomes of the services of all of those employees by abandoning his small particular duty. There is one man on the ship, and there are thousands of soldiers, officers, officials, cook, cleaners, thousands of people working on the ship. It's a huge sultanic ship. And they're all working, they're all doing their parts. And the ship needs to go to a certain place. And there's one person who is in charge of steering the ship. He is at the helm, and he sleeps. He sleeps. He doesn't steer the ship in the direction it's supposed to go. And while everybody thinks that they are on track and doing their job and moving on and on and on, all of a sudden the ship lands on a shallow spot and stops, and they can't move it any longer. Everybody did their job, but this person, he didn't do it. And now the sultan, or the owner of the ship, is chastising him, complaining about him, scolding him. He abandoned his small particular duty. But this faulty person cannot say, I am a lowly man. I do not deserve this severity as a result of my insignificant negligence. Was his negligence insignificant? As a particular act, yes, maybe he dozed off for 10 minutes. But from the point of view of consequences, it is tremendously significant. So he cannot say that. He cannot say, I am a lowly man. I do not deserve this severity as a result of my insignificant negligence. This is because one occasion of non-existence results in numerous occasions of non-existence. Let's try to think about this. Non-existence, meaning Adam, is the word in Turkish and Arabic. Adam is absence, non-existence. One occasion of non-existence results in innumerous occasions of non-existence. Since we went through the garden example, it might help us to understand what's going on here. The one occasion of non-existence there was that the person did not open the lid. But look, how many occasions of non-existence resulted from that. The service to the labor of the person who was in charge of fertilizing the plants became futile. Its outcome is not existing, non-existent. The labor of the person in charge of trimming the plants, that labor resulted in nothing. Its result does not exist. There is non-existence with regard to its result. The perfection of the garden and everything that it entails is non-existent. And everything in the perfection of garden was like, it's a big number. There are so many beautiful flowers, so many beautiful trees that were going to bear so many beautiful fruits. They're all non-existent. One occasion of non-existence results in innumerous occasions of non-existence. But existence bears fruit according to its self. So if the person opened the lid, right, the existence of opening the lid, the consequence of opening the lid would be opening the lid. The water would move. There would be water in the waterways and the channels. But he did not make the channels. If somebody did not make the channels, that he opened the lid would mean nothing. There is need for air. If the air is not procured, that he opened the waterway would mean nothing. Somebody needs to plant the trees or the seeds. If that person did not do it, that he opened the lid would amount to nothing. All that he opened the lid amounts to that he opened the lid. And everything else needs to be present, existent, in order for the outcome to materialize. So for the outcome to materialize, you need all causes, all occasions, all things that go into the materialization of that outcome. But for the outcome not to materialize, it is enough for one of those to be taken out. So if we use more fancy language, we could say none of them is sufficient cause. All of them are necessary cause. The sufficient cause is that all necessary causes are brought together. This is because one occasion of non-existence results in innumerous occasions of non-existence, but existence bears fruit according to itself. Cause, while the existence of a thing depends on the existence of all conditions and causes, in the case of non-existence and elimination, it becomes non-existent from the point of view of its outcomes as a result of the elimination of one condition or the non-existence of a single part. It takes an engine, a body, a steering wheel, a shift, tires, axle, etc., etc. All of those things to make a car, and then you also need to add gas and put a driver and have the driver ignite the car, etc., for the car to move. All of them put together, and the driver ignites the car, shifts the shift, and the car moves. But take one of them. Let's take one of the tires, or let's say two of the tires. They sometimes make cars that can go on two tires. Okay, let's take the battery of the car. Will the car move? Let's take the engine of the car. Will the car move? Let's take the driver. Will the car move? There will be things that are secondary, that are not going to affect the movement of the car, but will the car be perfect? Some of them are essential, that are going to prevent the car from moving, and some of them are going to prevent the perfection of the car and the act of moving. Because while the existence of a thing depends on the existence of all conditions and causes, in the case of non-existence and elimination, right, you can eliminate one of the things. You can eliminate the gas tank. No gas tank. Therefore, no gas. It becomes non-existent from the point of view of its outcomes, right, as a result of the elimination of one condition or the non-existence of a single part. This is why that harming is much easier than repairing has become a well-known principle. Harming is much easier than repairing. It takes hundreds of workers to work for perhaps 2 years in order to build let's say a palace. Hundreds of workers, thousands of trees cut for lumber, tons and tons of marble hauled to the construction site, tons of soil dug out for the foundation, etc., etc., etc., etc., and the palace is there. And then one child could ignite a match and drop it on perhaps the carpet, and the carpet could catch fire, and then the fire would spread and burn everything down within a few hours. And all it takes for this entire palace to burn is for the child to ignite a match and drop it. Of course, the carpet needs to be there. The palace needs to be made of combustible material like wood, etc., etc. But that is part of the perfection of the palace. That's not a fault. You want that beautiful carpet there. You want the wood to be where wood is supposed to be. It is an aspect of the perfection of the palace, not a fault. The fault is that the child ignited the match and dropped it. Madem küfür ve dalalet, tuğyan ve masiyet esasları inkardır ve reddir, terktir ve ademi kabuldür. Sureti zahiriyede ne kadar müsbet ve vücutlu görünse de hakikatte intifadır, ademdir. Öyleyse cinayeti sariyedir. Sair mevcudatın netaici amellerine halal verdiği gibi Esma-i ilahiyenin cilve-i cemallerine perde çeker. Since the essences of disbelief, misguidance, transgression, and sinfulness are denial, rejection, abandoning, and the absence of acceptance. Let's read this again. Since the essences of disbelief, kufr, misguidance, dalala, transgression, tuğyan, ve ma'asiyet, sinfulness, are denial, rejection, abandoning, and the absence of acceptance. They're all negative things, right? Sinfulness, denial. You are not bringing an idea to the table. All you are doing is you are saying, the idea that's on the table, I don't accept it. You are rejecting it. You are not doing something. You are not exerting yourself. All you are doing is withholding the exertion that was required from you for the outcome to materialize. Even in the case of disbelief, kufr, right? What you are doing is not accepting the existence of non-existence. And this is almost impossible. The great majority of cases in which a person does not believe, what this person is doing is withholding acceptance of reality. Why? Imagine somebody who says God does not exist in existence. Well, then we would expect this person to come through the entire existence and show us that there is no sign of the Creator anywhere in existence. How will that person do that? Perhaps you don't recognize the signs of creation in your limited existence, limited perception, limited life experience. But can you generalize from that to say that those signs exist nowhere? No, you cannot. But if someone were to suggest that the signs of creation exist in existence, all they would have to do would be to show one. And then we would say, yeah, there is at least one sign of creation. If you show two, we would say there are signs of creation. Three, a lot of signs of creation. Everywhere, of course, it's all full of the signs of creation. But kufr oftentimes, most of the time, is the absence of acceptance. And when it is the acceptance of absence, it is just a claim that is not founded, that has no real logical, intellectual foundation. So, since the essences of disbelief, misguidance, transgression, and sinfulness are denial, rejection, abandoning, and the absence of acceptance, they are elimination and non-existence in reality. Their nature is that they are elimination and non-existence. They are not existence. They are non-existence. They are not bringing something to the table. They are just rejecting what is brought to the table. They are not exerting effort to bring something into existence. It is withholding that effort. Right? It is about not doing, not believing, not accepting. They are elimination and non-existence in reality. No matter how substantive and existent they look. Right? Sometimes there are these, plays of word. There are tricks of intellect, fallacies that we cannot easily understand, grasp. They sometimes look like they are substantive. There is science, and hundreds of professors examined this matter, and this is the conclusion that they came to. Sometimes it looks substantive, but no matter how substantive and existent they look in external appearance, in essence, they are denial, rejection, abandoning, and the absence of acceptance, which amounts to elimination and non-existence. In that case, This is a crime that spreads and contaminates like fire, right? You ignite one match, but it spreads and contaminates. Why? Because it's non-existence. When you withhold one of the causes and conditions that are needed for the perfection of reality to be attained, that the absence of one cause or condition causes the entire thing to abort. It both harms the outcome of the acts of other existent beings. We have studied so far, and I hope we understood so far. I think I can say that my lower soul is persuaded at this point, but there is more to this. It is not only about that garden not reaching its perfection. It is not only about that ship not reaching its destination, because the creation of the garden and the journey of the ship had further, higher ends, purposes, and that was to manifest the art, the power, the wisdom, the beauty, the majesty, and the perfection of the Sultan, the owner of the garden, the creator, the Malik al-Mulk, the possessor of dominion, the owner of dominion. That is being prevented. And what happens as a result is that absence or elimination, that non-existence or elimination, veils the beautiful reflections of divine names. It both harms the outcome of the acts of other existent beings. So the star has a right to complain if you don't fulfill your job as the human being who sees the star and says Subhanallah. If you don't do that, the star has a right to complain. But even further, it veils the beautiful reflections of divine names. It does not prevent that. The divine names are still manifest. They are still reflecting. God's beauty and majesty is manifest on the firmament on a clear night. It is as manifest as daylight is during the day. But the non-existence of your acknowledgement veils that which is existent. And that's a crime. It's not a crime to or against the existent beings, against the creatures only. It's a crime against the divine names. It's a crime against God. İşte bu hadsiz şikayete hakları olan mevcudat namına o mevcudatın sultanı şu asi beşerden azim şikayet eder ve etmesi aynı hikmettir. Ve o asi şiddetli tehdidata elbette müstehaktır ve dehşetli vaidlere bila şüphe sezadır. Thus, the Sultan of the existent beings, and the Sultan of the existent beings is God. He has izzah. He has izzah. He has dignity, but it's dignity with a special meaning. He ardently protects the rights of his slaves and his own rights. He does not let anybody tread on those rights. He has the power to do so, and he has the determination to do so. Thus, the Sultan of the existent beings complains tremendously about this rebellious human being on behalf of those existent beings, which includes the divine names, who have a right to make this complaint. That he complains is very wisdom. There is wisdom in this. Of course, that rebellious one deserves severe threats. The one who withheld his tiny part for the whole to bloom into perfection. Of course, that rebellious one deserves severe threats. And without a doubt, dreadful promises of punishment are warranted for him. So what is that part? This is the end of the fifth matter, but perhaps as a little bit of further explanation, which was covered earlier in this podcast, but just as a reminder, what is that part that this human being needs to fulfill? Appreciation. First, observation, contemplation, appreciation, and glorification, and offering gratitude. The wisdom that we can know in the creation can be summarized into two parts. One is, as all possessors of beauty and perfection want to demonstrate that beauty and perfection, the most beautiful, the absolutely beautiful, and the absolutely perfect one has willed to create this existence, this created realm, to manifest his beauty, perfection, and majesty, and to see it with his discerning sight, to see his beauty, majesty, and perfection in the mirror of his creation. The second part is what concerns us, and to see it through the sights of those who have the ability to observe, discern, then appreciate, then show gratitude and glorify him and worship him in return for his beauty, majesty, and perfection. That is the function of the human being in this created realm, in existence. It may sound trivial to some. Why does it matter that when I see the tree that I say MashaAllah or not? Why does it matter that when I see the flower, oh, how beautiful, but not how beautifully it is created? Well, if we limit our thought, our intellect to the material realm, beyond which we cannot see the metaphysical reality of all of these things, beyond which we do not see their connection to the Creator, then we will not be able to understand why it matters. It matters because there is a tremendous metaphysical realm beyond this physical realm. Everything is connected to the Creator, and everything receives their true value from that connection. Without that connection, everything is reduced to their physical existence, which is composed of matter and energy, and which is doomed to disintegration, doomed to extinction. But in their aspect, and Ustad Nursi calls this the indicative aspect, meaning that in the aspect by which or through which they indicate their Creator, in the indicative aspect of beings, they manifest the names, attributes of their Creator. They show their connection. They manifest, reveal, and boast with their connection with the Creator. We need to open up our inner sight. When that happens, we see that connection. And when we see that connection, both in the creation, all created beings in the universe that we observe or think about, and in ourselves, when we see that connection, this question becomes meaningless. This question becomes meaningless because we understand the importance of the connection. We understand that the connection is important to the extent that the Lord to which we are connecting is important. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر الدعواه من الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. الصلوات.